So today we're speaking on the first 3 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. These verses are basically an introduction to the entire book, and so the essence of the whole Bhagavatam is addressed in these 3 verses. And in the first verse, we establish tattva. We're establishing the nature of truth. In the second verse, the Bhagavatam is turning away from untruth by identifying what is cheating religion. And then in the third verse, it begins to classify that truth. It begins to describe the rasika nature of Srimad Bhagavatam. So in other words, not only in establishing the truth, but actually establishing our relationship with that supreme truth, Sri Krishna. And that, as it is said in Bhagavad Gita, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matasavam pravartate iti mata bhajante mam buddhabhava samannata. If we know everything about the spiritual nature, material nature of Krishna, that then we can understand that that Krishna is attractive, and love will develop for Krishna. Buddha Bhava Samanvita. So that's the progression basically in these 3 verses and in the whole Bhagavatam. As we're finding out about Krishna, gradually we are developing our love for Krishna. And that is really how it works. Okay. So we'll carry on. Reading the Sanskrit of the first verse. It starts actually with Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We chant that every day, and that's actually the opening line of the first verse, which establishes that we are offering our obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva, or who is Krishna. So, very clearly, the object of the Bhagavatam in the first line is established beyond a doubt, Krishna. There is no argument about it. Some may argue, yes, but when it says in the first verse, it says Satyam Param Dhimahi, that we are meditating on the absolute truth. But that absolute truth can be so many things. Yes. No, it cannot be, because it's Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, finished. Your argument doesn't apply, because so we're establishing the objective, offering obeisances unto Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in Janmadi Asya Yatum Mayat. Janmadi Asya Yataha is actually not just an original reference here in Srimad Bhagavatam, but is referring to the Vedanta Sutra. The Vedanta Sutra is Vedanta, Veda Anta, the end of all knowledge. Sutra summarized in a almost like a code form. Basically, Brahmins were meant to study the Vedas at least 3 times, and obviously the Vedic knowledge was very vast. So the Vedanta Sutra then was kind of supplying an overview, basically, in like some short code forms, and one was meant to have knowledge of the Vedas in order to be able to understand the Vedanta Sutra. If you read the Vedanta Sutra only and nothing else, you will not be able to decipher its meaning. Even after reading the Vedas, it is difficult. But after Srimad Bhagavatam, it is very easy, because Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. That is stated in the Garuda Purana. The Garuda Purana, I have a verse here, it's the only one thing I dug up this morning. I couldn't really prepare because of so many other pressing engagements, but Sanatana Goswami in the Hari Bhakti Vilas quotes from the Garuda Purana, Artyam Brahma Sutranam Bharatarvata Vinimaya Gayatri Basya Rupa Sovedartha Paribrimrita Puranam Samarupa Saksat Bhagavatita Tadasa Skanda Yuktayam Sadavicheda Samyutta Grantas Tadasa Sahasra Srimad Bhagavata Pidam. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the explanation of the Vedanta Sutra. It is the complete settlement of the Mahabharata, and it is the complete commentary on the Gayatri Mantra. It strengthens the explanation of the Vedas and is the topmost Purana written by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It has 12 cantos, 100 sections, and 18,000 slokas. So it's quite an endorsement in the Garuda Purana. I mean, that verse is exactly on the point, right? Establishing the Srimad Bhagavatam as the explanation of the Vedanta Sutra and more. It gives the ultimate conclusion on the Mahabharata, which the essence of the Mahabharata is the Bhagavad Gita, and again establishes Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Complete commentary on the Gayatri Mantra. Alright, back to the text. Janmadhyasya Yataha is referring to the Vedanta Sutra, is establishing that Krishna is the origin of everything. So that is very significant. Let us read the full first sentence. Janmadhyasya Yatam Vyat Itaratas Chate Swabhikya Swarat. There are two other words that are highlighted in the purport of Srila Prabhupada and that are essential to the whole verse, and they are, so Krishna is the origin of everything, but Krishna is abhigya. He knows everything about everything. He is all-pervading. So Krishna is fully conscious of everything, unlike us, sort of like we don't all the time feel our heart beating, and I'm not really feeling my toe until I start to think about my toe, or unless someone steps on my toe. Otherwise, I never think of toe, not very much. I don't know about yourself. Toe, toe, toe. Oh toe, oh toe, oh toe. No, so there is, we are quite unconscious in many ways. But Krishna is abhigya, fully conscious, fully aware of every aspect of, you cannot say the creation, of every aspect of existence, because we speak both about the spiritual and the material existence. Krishna, in the material world, everything is emanating from him, and he is fully conscious of it, and he is all-pervading, and yet he is Swarat, he is independent of it. So this is interesting. I like in this regards to take you to Brahmanda Ghat in Vrindavan, and where Srila Prabhupada took his bath in the Yamuna, and all the devotees were pouring water on him as a matter of abhishek. And in that particular place, in Brahmanda Ghat, is where Lord Krishna is supposed to have eaten clay, and where Mother Yasoda is supposed to have looked in his mouth and seen the entire Brahmanda, or the whole universes and everything there. And the interesting part was, then she looked in Krishna's mouth and she saw within those universes, she saw again Krishna, and someone wants to come in, and she saw herself looking in the mouth of Krishna again. So now what we're seeing is basically, we're seeing that Krishna is within the universe. That's very clear. He's within the universe, and the universe is within him. So isn't that interesting? That is very interesting. And we see there is a universe existing separate from Krishna, with all its planetary systems and everything, and yet Krishna at the same time. So one would think, if if all the energy that comes from the Lord, the universe and so on, or all the universes, if that energy of the Lord is in divine origin, then if you think, what is God? You would say, well, God is the person, Krishna, plus all the energy. That's logical, because it's all divine. Mama Maya Duratya, it is Daiviye Sagunamayi, it is established as divine. So when all the energy of Krishna is divine and the person of Krishna is divine, then logic would make it out to be that God is personality plus energy, because that's everything divine that's there. But no, he's personality, and the energy is included within. How can this be? How can this be? Arguing is a favorite pastime in India. I saw a group of Indians, with all due respect, play cricket, and as usual, they were not very good, because only the national cricket team can play cricket. Nobody else really can that well, sorry to say. So it wasn't about the innings and this and that. What it was about the argument. Out, 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 you're out, you're out. No, I could see why cricket became so popular. Because it appealed to the natural arguing tendency. So when we are discussing this particular verse, we must appreciate that we're going to face many people who want to argue. And actually, what I'm doing is I'm providing arguments to deal with these arguing people. Like an interesting mention also in the purport is about the historical date of the Bhagavatam, and there it is mentioned. Some people say that Bhagavatam is not an old scripture, that it's actually a recent scripture, and that it was written by actually Bhopadev, who is a prolific writer and commentator, but not really a Vaishnava. But anyway, so, I read this, and it says in the purport that actually this is wrong, because the Bhagavatam is mentioned in one of the oldest Puranas, the Matsya Purana, clearly as with 18,000 verses and so on, and some other details. So I read all that argument, and I thought to myself, well, interesting, but I'm never ever going to have to use this in my life. But, I mean, it's sort of theoretical knowledge. Bhopadev didn't write the Bhagavatam because it's mentioned in the Matsya Purana that it's an ancient, and the Matsya Purana is one of the earliest Puranas, so it's an old scripture, so it couldn't be Bhopadev. And then I had a flat tire at the side of the highway in Delhi, towards Delhi, and stood there, and suddenly one man comes out of the bushes, and he says to me, out of nowhere, he says, Bhopadev wrote the Bhagavatam. And I just said, the same speed, I said, no, he did not, because it says in the Matsya Purana that the Bhagavatam is mentioned there with 18,000 slokas. Bang. It's really good. I enjoyed it a lot. And it just, Krishna was behind it, because I just read it a few days before. So we are getting arguments here, and we're going to need it. We're going to have to argue, because people will want to argue. So we understand, yes, Krishna is the origin of everything. That's interesting, because you have heard the philosophy of the rope and the snake of Shankaracharya. It's dark, and there is this thing lying on the ground, and is it a rope or is it a snake? Testing, a rope or snake, what is it? It's hard to say. So the basic metaphor is used by Shankaracharya to create the fact that when you think you're seeing a snake, right? It's not a snake, it's a rope. It's just a rope. In other words, it seems to be something else, but it's not a snake. And what is he trying to say? He's saying like Brahman is, there is nothing else you can say. Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya, he says. Brahman is true and the universe is false. So the universe is the snake. You're seeing a snake, the universe. But actually, the reality is there is only the road. There's only Brahman. There is only Brahman. You're seeing the universe, but there's only Brahman. And your seeing of the universe is just your imagination. Because how can God change? Brahman, representing God, never changes. So logically, if you see it changed, it must be illusion. It must be false. That's Sankaracharya's argument. So the first verse of Bhagavatam is defeating that argument. How? Because it is establishing that there are two things, that there is Krishna and something coming forth of Krishna. So that's one. But how can it change? How can it change? How is this possible? How can Brahman change? It's not possible. It's logical what Sankaracharya says. No. Because Brahman is not the Supreme Lord. The Upanishad establishes that. Hiranmayena patrena satyastyapi tamukam tattam pusanapavlinam satyadharmaya drishyate. Now please take away this dazzling effulgence and show me your true face. So the Brahman is the Jyoti. It is not Krishna. It is the effulgence of Krishna. And even the effulgence of Krishna is transcendental. There is no doubt about it. But it is the Shakti. Therefore, the philosophy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is known as Shakti Parinamavat. Or Shakti, the energy, is Parinam, is the result. It is the result. The energy is the result. A result means there's something original and a product. In other words, the energy is the product of Krishna. The Brahman is the product of Krishna. And there are many products coming from Krishna. And Krishna is the origin of all these products. Janmadi asiyataha tunvyat itaratas chatesu svavikyasvara. He is fully conscious of all these products, but he is not involved with them. It's not that Krishna sits behind a computer and has to, do Control S to make the sun rise, or Control R in L, which means rain in Leicester, or something like that. Krishna doesn't need to. He doesn't need to work like that. No, because Krishna is simply everything goes on by his desire. So he is Swarat, independent. He doesn't need to work. Natasya karyam karanam savijyate parasya shakti vividaya sriyate. Krishna has no work to perform, but he has so many energies, and all these energies are doing things. So here we are getting the idea of the first verse. The text continues and basically establishes this Tene Brahmaridaya Adhikavya Muyanti Yatsura. This knowledge was revealed in the heart of Adhikavi, of Lord Brahma. It was revealed by Krishna. Because otherwise, Muyanti et Suryaha, Muyanti means moha, means illusion. Even the demigods are in illusion. Everyone is illusion. So when we speak, the Mayavadis will say that the material energy is illusion. That is illusion. We will say, no, our perception of what we see is illusion. When we see it separate from Krishna, then we are in illusion. That is illusion. So Bhagavatam deals with that all living beings in the material world are in illusion. Same thing in Bhagavad Gita. Ichadvesa samutena dvandamena bharata. It says all living beings are overcome by delusion in Bhagavad Gita. Then tejo varimadam yata avinamyo yatasu yatrati sargam rissa damnasvena sada nirastakukam satyam paramlime. So then it begins to speak about illusion. It is saying how we sometimes see water on land or in fire, like animals may run after such water. So we think that happiness is there in relation to the body and to the material energy. And that is our mistake. Happiness is only existing in relation to the Supreme Lord. And we think that we are this body and that we are the enjoyer. So what is illusion? Illusion is what is classified in Bhagavad Gita. Ishwaraham aham bhogi. I am the controller and I am the enjoyer. And that is actually the bodily concept of life. Aham mameti. And that is the illusion. I am the controller and I'm the enjoyer. But Krishna is the controller because he is the origin of everything. He is aware of everything. He is controlling everything. So ultimately, then we come to Satyam Param Dhimahi. Dhimahi is the word that invokes the Gayatri mantra. If you say Bhagavatam is the comment on Gayatri mantra, it is the word Dhimahi is taken from the Gayatri mantra and means to meditate. Param Satyam, the absolute truth. It refers to the Brahma Gayatri. The Brahma Gayatri is basically giving us an understanding how behind the material energy is a foundation of spiritual energy, and Krishna is the origin of that spiritual energy. Everything rests on spirit, and Krishna is behind spirit. So that same point. So when we say Satyam Param Dhimahi, in the context of this whole verse, meditating on the absolute truth, then we understand that is on Vasudeva Bhagavan, on Sri Krishna Bhagavan, who is the origin of everything. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada explains, Param Satyam, the absolute truth, means, it means Krishna. And if you think Param Satyam, if you think the absolute truth, it's not really clear what you're dealing with. It could be the personality Krishna, it could be the impersonal, all-pervading energy. Param Satyam is such a thing. It's hard to define. But what the first verse is establishing is that Param Satyam is Parameshwar, Krishna. Krishna is known as Parameshwar, the supreme controller. Param Ishvara. And Prabhupada said, as soon as you speak of an Ishvara, of a controller, then you speak about a person. Ishvara means person. Yes. Therefore, the purpose of Bhagavatam, Prabhupada writes in the introduction, is to establish that Param Satyam is Parameshwar, or that the absolute truth is the supreme controller, Sri Krishna. And that is more or less something on the first verse. Now I'll give you 5 minutes to get interactive and wake up. So I don't give you 5 minutes to wake up. I give you 5 seconds. So I sort of fill the space with some words right now, just so that your mind can recover from the panic. Help! I have to wake up now and ask some questions. But please, if you have a question, then now go ahead. Yes. That's fine. Now loud and clear your question.
Okay. You're talking about absolute truth.
Yeah.
You also understand that the soul is an eternal entity.
Yeah.
Up to the point of eternal entity. And how is it that other religions don't accept that all living entities, like animals, don't have a soul?
That's really theology. Right? That concept did not come from the Bible. That came from theologians, Christian theologians. And that's what you call, well, philosophers, right, are trying to take knowledge, either that they are getting from their own speculation or from some shastra, from some scripture, and they try to bring that down to practical reality. So practical reality was that they were meat eaters. So since they were meat eaters, they needed a philosophy which was not contradicting the scripture and at the same time could accommodate for that flesh eating because they were very attached to it. So then one intelligent or over-intelligent theologian came up with a brilliant idea. Animals have no soul. Then there is no moral restrictions in relation to animals. And there's no injustice in killing them and this and that because they have no soul. So it's just biological life. I was in Africa and I had, in South Africa, had a conversation with a person who really had suffered under the apartheid regime and who told me that whites have no soul. I mean, yeah, well, for a moment, it sort of like was like a penny dropped, you know. Oops. That means that there is no moral restrictions in. All right, that clarified something about the statistics in the country with high money rates. All right, back to Srimad Bhagavatam. Any other question? Yes.
I remember reading in the CC about Sankaracharya and why he was ordered to come. But I got terribly confused.
Padma Purana is actually being referred to.
Yeah. Why was Lord Shiva ordered to create so much havoc? Is it just part of Kali?
In Mayavadam Asatyastram, right? The aim was that Lord Shiva was ordered to provide this Mayavad philosophy. Why? Because prior to that, people had, in the name of Vedic culture, had gradually taken more and more to ritualistic animal slaughter. Just like nowadays, still in Calcutta, in Kalighat, so many animals are slaughtered, way beyond what is permissible in the scripture in Kali worship. It's gone way out of hand. So many animals were being slaughtered in the name of Vedic ritualistic performance. So then Buddha came as an incarnation to and establish a philosophy of ahimsa. Because people were so much steeped in Vedic culture and claiming that all this is authorized in the Vedic literature, therefore it's bona fide, Buddha basically started preaching, don't follow the Vedas, follow me. And he presented this kind of impersonal philosophy of sunyavad, everything is zero. So then it was a non-theistic philosophy, Buddhism, but of course by saying follow me, he was in a covert way telling them to follow God himself. So then, so Buddhism was meant to take people away from the Vedas. Then Mayavad, Lord Shiva was inspired to appear and teach this Mayavad philosophy, which was very similar to Buddhism, and to bring people back to the Vedas. And we see Sankaracharya, beside establishing Mayavad, his main mission was he entered into debate with all the Buddhists. And they had this thing, whoever was defeated would have to either surrender to the other or enter into a slow burning fire. So So that was the generally part of the prayer of the some chose for the slow burning fire, and they sat down and slowly got roasted. Others they surrendered. Most surrendered. So Sankaracharya's main role actually was not to establish just this Mayavad doctrine, but he drove Buddhism over the borders of India. Buddhism went out. That was his main mission, actually. And that if you historically check it, you can see that's actually what Sankaracharya achieved. Then you get the Vaishnavacharyas. They come and they begin to establish, like Madhavacharya is establishing Dvaita, right? Two. It's two. Always two. Jiva and the Supreme Lord. Not one. Sankaracharya. No, two. It's always two. And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes with Achintya Veda Veda Tattva. It's simultaneously one and many. So Brahman is also there. It is all connected. It's all spiritual ends, but there is also that variety. So in that way, it fits in a full picture. Yes.
And is this part of Krishna's repetitive leela? Like every Kali Yuga, this phase happens again and again. It just seems like he confused it.
It seems what?
It seems as if Krishna just over-confused it.
Over-confused it? No, it's not Krishna over-confused it. We over-confused it. The Krishna is responding to the confused living beings. So you see, it's like as Kali Yuga is approaching, people begin to misinterpret the Vedas more and more, and they are no longer taking the essence of the Vedas. They are just taking isolated statements and just build a case on that. But one must take each statement in the context of the conclusion of the Vedas as a whole. That's how one must interpret scripture. Just as this verse, we must see it in the context of Bhagavatam as a whole. So it's not Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya that established Krishna only. The whole Bhagavatam established Krishna. So we see this one verse in the context of the whole text of Bhagavatam. Then it's clear. So more and more, Vedic knowledge was being misused, misinterpreted, and incomplete knowledge, and every Pandit was just quoting something. Sounded impressive, some Sanskrit. But so the conclusion of the Vedas became lost. So then Krishna, he used tactics to bring back the bewildered people, understanding very well that that the jump from Buddhism to worship of Krishna is just too much, just too big a step. People would not be able to comprehend and take it. So he built some steps in between. That's all. And to us that may seem like, wow, it caused so much confusion because now we're still having all this trouble of all this Mayavad and so on. But don't worry, Mayavad is already half dead and still flapping. It has no real ground for survival. Of course, there will always be a few diehards, that will continue to exist. But the golden age is already on the rise, and Vaishnavism will just flood the entire world. So it's not that we are so worried about Mayavad. Oh my God. Although it is a Vaishnav sport, we have swimming, wrestling, and bashing Mayavadis. That's a Vaishnav sport. Nonetheless, it's not that we feel greatly threatened by them. It's a disease, and we try to root it out thoroughly, but it's not like that we're worried about how we're going to treat this disease and how we're going to make it. No problem.
What happens in the Kali Yugas when Sri Chaitanya isn't the incarnation?
Lahu Bhagavatamrita of Rupa Goswami is dealing with that and saying that there is a blackish incarnation that appears. And it says that this blackish incarnation is also teaching a form of Nam Sankirtan. However, what is missing is the mercy element of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And therefore, the result is not the same. It is not that very quickly success is attained, nor is Krishna Prema attained, because that only Krishna himself can give. So they can only give Dharma. So Nam Sankirtan, the result of it is that people become more dharmic, adhering to religious principles. So the Nam Sankirtan in that age will help people to adhere to Dharma. Paritanaya sadhanam vinasya sadhuskatam. All the incarnations of the Lord are establishing Dharma and annihilating Dharma. But Krishna, only Krishna can give Krishna Prema. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna. He gives Krishna Prema. Now the questions on this verse are up because it's supposed to cover 2 more. So you have to wait now. Hold your horses. We're continuing now with verse number 2. Read that quickly. Zoom, zoom, zoom. We're flying through it now. Where is it? There is, of course, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta lectured for 3 months on the first verse of the Bhagavatam without repeating himself. I don't know if I would go for 3 months, but certainly for 3 days, right? I think I could spend the rest of the day and tomorrow and the day after speaking on this first verse, and I really wouldn't need to move on. So what we're doing is the bird's flight. Right? Dharma projita kaitavo trapadamo nimatsaranam satam. So we're identifying kaitava dharma, or any type of religion with fruitive intent. Karma kanda, the karma kanda section of the Vedas, is basically that section of the Vedas which gives us many amazing rituals and Jai Jagadish with lots of devotion and bhakti, or apparent devotion, not bhakti, but apparent devotion. The ritual is performed for what? Right? For profit. For give me a better material life. Dhanam dehi rupavati dehi rupavaryan dehi. Give me beauty, give me wealth, give me health, give me all kinds of material things. And for that, Jai Jagadish, we'll pray with a lot of devotion. But it's for our own gain. And we go to the deity and we throw 1 paisa and we ask for 1 lakh. So what's that called? That's business. Any Gujarati can understand. And not only that that's business, but that there's a good percentage also. I mean, that's good investment, 1 paisa and 1 lakh. That's very good business. What business has that kind of profit? So, in the name of worship, in short, outside of the temple in Vrindavan, we have the money changers. They sit there, they have a cloth, and they have a pile of coins. And they have 1 paisa coins. In India, you don't have any more 1 paisa coins. They are no longer, they've been taken out of circulation. So the lowest denomination these days is 5 paisa. So, but 1 paisa coins, they still go. They are sold in front of the temple. So then for 1 rupee, you buy 100 coins, and you throw them at the deities. So for 1 rupee, you can go around for all the darshans and get all the deities of Vrindavan and throw some coins. So this is very good. And then we get all these, in the temples, we get all these one paisa coins. And what we do is we sell them by the kilo to the money changers. And who give us money for it then. That's the deal. And then they come back. So it's a business. So the point is, it's all business. It's a business. With great devotion, I'm throwing my 1 coin. Jai Jagadish Hamko mani chahiye. Yes. So that's very clear. Yes. So this is worshipping the Lord for temporary benefits. This is foolishness, because Even if you have all the money of the world, you will die, and then you will not take it with you. So worship is not meant, even if you are the most healthy person in the whole universe, for how long will you be healthy? Even a healthy person dies. Healthy his whole life, and then he dropped dead. Finished. Dead ho gaya. So it is like, what is the point of this worship for temporary benefit? This is foolishness. We're cheating ourselves. We're acting that it's so religious, but it doesn't give us any real benefit. It is cheating. Cheating. Another form of cheating is the Kadamba Kanana section of the Vedas, where we are focusing on just Brahman, and we forget everything about Bhagavan and about Paramatma. We forget everything about Krishna. We only know the Brahman aspect, and we want to lose our individuality. Kaivalyam naragayate. It is simply hellish because we cheat ourselves out of devotional service, out of the nectar of devotional service. Because the Mayavadi will say, Krishna is Maya, the spiritual world is Maya, and devotional service is Maya. Therefore they are Mayavadis, those who adhere to the philosophy that these things are Maya. Krishna Maya, devotional service Maya, the spiritual world Maya. That's what they say. In this way they cheat themselves and others. Cheating religion. What to do? The truth is known to those who are non-envious. Mayavad is another philosophy out of convenience. Because it's very convenient to say that God is dead, there is no God, the personality of God doesn't exist, because actually, Tattvam Asi, you are that too. You too are God. Last snare of Maya. It is said that the Mayavadis, they are supposedly have to give up all sense of ego. This is their claim, that they give up all sense of ego. It's like they merge with Brahman, and ego is to be given up. But the truth of the matter is they have the biggest ego. They're not giving up ego, they have the biggest ego. I mean, I am God. And I ride on an elephant with a trident. That's pretty big ego. It's like, can't get bigger than that. So we can see they actually have an what Carl Jung in psychology has identified as a swollen ego. And he speaks of a swollen ego, the serious swelling. Serious swelling. I am God. Yes. And meanwhile, God is at the dentist. And yeah. So, what can I do? I'm Srimad Bhagavatam te Mahamuni Krite. It is Mahamuni. Mahamuni is Vyasadeva. Why is he Mahamuni? Why is he the great sage? Because Vyasadeva is identified as a Shakti Avesh avatar. Shakti Avesh means he's Jiva. Vyasadeva is Jiva, but especially empowered Jiva, and Krishna uses him as his instrument, even more than a pure devotee, especially empowered. So it is Vyasadeva who, in his mature age, is writing Srimad Bhagavatam and is establishing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But who can understand? The Mayavadis cannot understand. How can Krishna be God? Krishna is just illusion. They will argue in so many ways, out of envy. They cannot understand. Therefore, the Mayavadi cannot even say the name Krishna. Cannot say Krishna, because envious. So it's for the non-envious. What can we say? Therefore, the pious, they will not delay. They will immediately engage in the discussion of the Srimad Bhagavatam. because here this Srimad Bhagavatam, it establish the highest truth. I'll jump due to time constraint to the third verse. Nigama kalpatara galitam phanam sukhamuki mukat mudita drava samyutam pibata bhagavatam rasamaliyam muhuraho rasikabuhi bhukaha. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desired tree of Vedic literature. It emanated from the lips of Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore this fruit had even become more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. So here the taste is coming in. The element of that Bhagavatam is very relishable. It is the mature fruit of the desired tree of Vedic literatures. In short, we find that Sanatana Goswami in his Srimad Bhagavatamrita has kind of written a little story based on this theme. Srimad Bhagavatamrita is the story of Gopakumar, who travels on the strength of his mantra from earth to higher and higher abodes. So at one point Gopakumar has come to Brahma Loka. And just then Lord Brahma has to go for some particular function, so he asked Gopakumar to sort of take the post of Lord Brahma. So suddenly Gopakumar has the post of Brahma, and he's sitting there, and it's a whole thing. And like on one occasion, the Vedas personified were all assembled in the court of Brahma, and for a discussion on the absolute truth, on what was truth. And the whole assembly was there in front of Gopakumar Brahma, and the discussion somehow or other got hijacked. It got out of hand. The discussion got hijacked by the Upanishads. They started to just really dominate the whole situation and try and establish the impersonal Brahman as the absolute truth. So, and everyone was applauding, and the audience there, everyone was so impressed by the Upanishads and so on, that at one point the certain Puranas, the Bhagavad Purana, and some Agamas and some confidential Upanishads like the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, they couldn't tolerate it any longer. It was just too much, it was too much, and they walked out of the assembly, and they simply just, left right there, which was a big drama. I mean, because they were very respected. So suddenly these respectable personalities stood up and walked out, and my God, everyone goes like, oh no, they are offended, and what are we going to do? And we got to go after them and bring them back. And they went after them in great humility and said, oh please, have we in some way offended you? Please do return, do not leave the assembly and bring this inauspiciousness upon us. Then the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Agamas and the Gopal Upanishad, Tapani Upanishad and other Upanishads that were confidential came back, and they were given the special honor and attention, and they spoke, and they established that actually Krishna and worship of Krishna is the ultimate objective of the Vedas. Vasudeva Parak Veda, Vasudeva Paramaka, Vasudeva Parakya, Vasudeva Parayoga, and Vasudeva Paragati. It is established in Srimad Bhagavatam that Vasudeva is the ultimate goal of all the Vedas. Yes, Nikamagal Patara Kalitam Phalam. Then it says when there's a mango tree, and when there's a parrot who with its beak cuts the mango, supposedly the mango is getting very sweet. Okay, we are not villagers, so we don't have any experience of such things. We just know about mangoes on the shelf of the supermarket. But all right, we take Bhagavatam's word for it, and that is a metaphor for when Bhagavatam is spoken by a pure devotee of the Lord, then that Bhagavatam becomes even more relishable. And why is it so? Because it is said, Dharmasya tattvam nitam guhayam, that the absolute truth remains even hidden from the scriptures, and it is manifest in the heart of the pure devotee. So in this way, through Sukadeva Goswami's lips, it became even more relishable. In the same way, Srila Prabhupada, Tamal Krishna Maharaj stated that Prabhupada claimed that his purports were more important than the verses of Bhagavatam. So is that humble? I mean, and like, you know, I mean, what do you think of that? You know? I mean, is that shocking? It is, yes. Very shocking, because isn't Bhagavatam, this is Bhagavatam, you know? Bhagavatam is untouchable, it's perfect, absolute truth. It's Amla Puranam, it's the spotless Purana. So how can Prabhupada say such a thing? I mean, your Swami, how can he say such a thing? What if someone asks you this question? How can your Swami say such a thing about Bhagavatam, that his purports are more important than Bhagavatam? Bhagavatam is Amala Purana, spotless Purana. So, yes, it is. But it is through those purports that we can understand Bhagavatam. Without these purports, what will we understand of that spotless Purana? The Purana may be spotless, but we, who are so full of spots, so that we are one big spot, right? You know, one big spot, what will we understand of Bhagavatam? But by these purports, even we who are dull, who are Manda Sumanda Matyo Mandabhaki Padruta, who are typical products of Kali Yuga, slow-witted, right, proud, arrogant, always agitated, and so on. Even we, by these purports, can understand. So that is there, and it even becomes more sweet by these explanations. Finally, it is said in the text, it said, Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamaliyam, you must drink this Bhagavatam 3 years. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary says that laya is this word laya. We can break up the Sanskrit and separate it as the word laya. He says laya is one of the 8 ecstatic transformations in love of God, and it means to fall unconscious. He said what it means is that we should hear the Bhagavatam until we fall unconscious. So, but if you fall unconscious, you cannot hear the Bhagavatam anymore. He says, then when you come back to your consciousness, you should hear Bhagavatam again until you fall unconscious again. And this is how we should hear Bhagavatam. So you can just imagine that next week we'll all be standing up in Bhagavatam, and Leela Sukha Prabhu will just continue Bhagavatam until we get so exhausted that we fall unconscious. No, one is supposed to fall unconscious out of ecstasy. That we drink the nectar of this Bhagavatam. It's not artificial, because Krishna is actually wonderful. Now we are establishing today that wonderful Krishna. But Bhagavatam is not only saying that Krishna is wonderful, but Bhagavatam is describing to us how Krishna is wonderful. And as we're hearing more how Krishna is wonderful, then one day it will actually penetrate into our dull brain. And one day we might even say, well, I must say, Krishna's kind of nice. Actually, I must say, he's a bit impressive. Yeah, I mean, really. Yeah, he lifted a hill, you know. I mean, it was quite big at that time. Yeah, it was. Yeah. Even the Gandharvas were smashing with their planes into the hill. That's how high it was. Okay, fair enough, I guess. he's sort of, it's got something, the old Krish. In that way, gradually, in our dull contemporary brains, maybe some appreciation for Krishna may awaken. And one day, we might cry a tear. Oh my God. And in this way, even it is said, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, who gave us this Srimad Bhagavatam as the principal evidence, who gave the same conclusions of Srimad Bhagavatam, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, even a sinful, fallen materialist can become a pure devotee of the Lord. Now it's 9 o'clock, so okay, I steal 5 minutes extra. Any question? This is your chance. If you click on the draw, you'll be the first, and Krishna Kirtan is right there. Second time. Yes, Krishna Kirtan.
Right. You were talking about how Prabhupada's verses, purports are more important than the verses. But again, in reading one of his purports in CC, he's given a commentary on most of the books that his spiritual master, who's also a pure devotee of the Lord, has written, and like that, all of the acharyas are.
Yeah.
So then, first part of the question is, why, if it's already done by a pure devotee, it's juice, then it's juice, so let it be. And the second is, what happens after Prabhupada?
Yes, certainly a very intelligent question. Highly appreciate the intellectual effort that went into kind of constructing it. It reminds me of another construction that came up some years ago, a seminar which was called Unzipping the Purports, which was exactly aiming at establishing that actually Prabhupada's purports were not Prabhupada's purports at all, but rather that they were simply full of citations from the commentaries of the previous acharyas. Just see. The presenter said, who was somewhat academic, he said, just see. And we said, yes, we are seeing. Yes, we are seeing. We are seeing how amazingly faithful Srila Prabhupada is. Yes, we are seeing that he is not speculating. Yes, we are seeing that he is completely faithful in representing all the previous acharyas, and then at some points, some insights of his own as well. Yes, we are seeing how wonderful these purports are. Yes, we are seeing that the purports are indeed greater than the verses. Yes, we are seeing. That's my response to that attitude. So it is an asset that the purports are so rich with references and commentaries, and that illustrates Prabhupada's pure devotion, that he was near Matsarana, that he was non-envious, and that he simply was ready to carry the message and not had to put his own stamp on every statement he made, like the particular Prabhupada angle, He always has such an amazing, unique angle, right? The Prabhupada angle. No, he had. He had these very basic questions, like about things nobody thought of. If by evolution they say that from monkeys at one point man evolved, then Prabhupada said, well, we have monkeys today, then why is that now the monkeys are no longer turning into men? And it's just such a good question, right? And, you know, nobody ever thinks of it, you know. It's sort of like blow the mind, you know. Prabhupada was brilliant, with these unique insights, and yet so faithful to Bhagavatam, so faithful to Shastra, so faithful to the Acharyas. And therefore, we trust him. You know, everything else, you read it with filters. Even you read the Mahabharata from this one and that one, and you sort of read it with the filters that you got from Prabhupada's books. And then you read something, well, that's strange. I never read that in Prabhupada's books. If you didn't read it in Prabhupada's books and it comes up somewhere on the internet or anywhere, you know, then do not drink it in. You know, sort of filter it and say, well, it may be true, may not be true. I'll shelve it for now and see if there's more evidence coming up about this point. But you can't just fully trust it. But Prabhupada's purports and translations, we can just drink it in. And that's such a relief, you know, like, why is the modern world so stressful? Is because the whole day people are trying to sell me things, right? As this, you need it. No, I don't. You know, you need it. It's the real thing. No, it's not. It's rubbish. Right? You know, but they sell it to us like for the real thing. And the whole day you have to filter it out. You have to filter it out mentally. Makes you exhausted. Right? The whole day. This world imposing upon us, right? Think like this, conform, be like this, you know. I just, you know, saw on my little iPad yesterday that in the Netherlands, of all countries, they have now schools that are completely based on iPad, right? There's nothing else anymore, and the kids, they have the school, there's a physical school building, and it's always open. The kids can always go there. And they also have a virtual school building, which is also open. You can also always go in there. They're always online. And everything is just the iPad experience. Right? And yeah. And then I was thinking about it. And this iPad, you know, like, it's sort of, yeah, with it, you get the apps also, right? And the apps, you know, are like all this pre-digested material presented in a sexy format, right? With really good graphics and nice pictures, and that sort of really it kills the exploring spirit of thinking on yourself. You know, before you had to plow through books and this and that, go into libraries. Now, forget it, you know, you just like quickly Google something, quickly get some, look in Wiki, and then you got your information, lots of it, more than you can digest, and that's plenty. But actually it was already pre-digested for you, and this way you're programmed very nicely. And individual thinking power diminishes day by day. Therefore, when we could just return to just reading Bhagavatam, right? Then we could become very deep and thoughtful people. Okay, so these 3 verses give us the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. Namely, as I said it at the beginning, it establishes the truth. Krishna is the origin of everything is emanating from him, and he is everything at the same time, and he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, Kevala Visarabandha, or this fruitive demigod worship, it brings us temporary fruits. We're cheating ourselves. It's the Bhagavatam that's saying, it's not the Hare Krishna movement that's saying it. You know, one big problem I have with these Hare Krishnas is that it's a movement predominated by Westerners, and the thing is, you know, they just don't have a history with worshipping the devatas. Whereas we, in our family, we have actually a tradition, you know, in our Gotra, and our Gotra goes back to Gotrama Muni, and actually since yugas, we have worshipped the devatas, and we are burning the lamp. No, very serious. We are burning the lamp. You know, my grandmother taught me personally when I was so small how to burn the lamp. And you know, then these Western Hare Krishnas, they don't understand actually, and they are speaking out against burning the lamp. No, it's not those Westerners. Oh my God, and not them. Then who is it? It is Srimad Bhagavatam. Oh my God, it is Srimad Bhagavatam. And what does it say? Dharma projita, kaitavo, cheating, religion. Oh my God. I mean, can't we say it softly then? So nice. Demigods are also nice. We put them on the side of the altar. Little corner. They can stay. Little. Burn some one flower, little lamps. Chota. Only lamp. No. On the side of the altar. No. Oh, come, not so harsh. Ganesh, oh, you cannot send my Ganesh off my altar. Why not? But isn't that a big apparat? Ganesh will become very angry with me. No, he will not. Because he's pleased when we worship Krishna. Because he's worshipping Krishna. So, why? Because it is best when we send out a clear message. The clear message from the Bhagavatam. And the message of the Bhagavatam is that it's Kaitava Dharma, cheating religion. So what can I say? So I appreciate the good religious sentiment, but Bhagavatam smashes it to pieces. I'm so sorry to say, so early in the morning before breakfast. Oof. Is it a joke there? And it is not, and therefore Narottam Das Thakur, who was Indian, by the way, Narottam Das Thakur, he said, Mat Anya Devas Rayanai, in which, if we ask the local Bengali representatives, means? Oh, Gujarati. Who's a Bengali? No Bengali. Bangla nahi. Oh, to ki korbo? Koi asubida? Kono asubida nahi. Ami anadot korbo. I will translate it for you. It is said that we should not take shelter of any other demigod, of any other deity. What to do? Kichit Kirlaya Bhaktivasudeva Parayana Bhagavatam says, only take shelter of Krishna. Now it's 9:15. And you had a question before. And they have questions. 3 questions. Shall I take 3 questions and then finish, or shall I finish?
It's up to you, man.
Okay, take it quick. You are almost like something's jumping out of your mouth. You'll be the last. You want the last word. Yours quick. The answer will be quick too.
As you said, like, no demigod worship by each disciple. What if in your house you've been brought up with, you know, you've had them forever?
Yeah.
You did change to Gaudiya Vaishnava, but would you with those deities or something?
Give them away.
Maharaj, please, in Gujarat, rest is also quite a lot Gujarati, and I'm afraid I'm also brought up in Gujarati household, where there is a lot of love and affection, but there is also confusion, like you explained. Sri Krishna lived in Gujarat for so many years. Why is it that this Mayavadism has pervaded Gujarati so much?
Sankaracharya was powerful, and him and his disciples, they traveled all over India. And they organized themselves and they established these months, and they were very learned brahmanas. So all the pandits just were defeated, and those who were not defeated just surrendered because they didn't want to look bad. So basically, they became the predominant. That became the predominant kind of school, and then so before Sankaracharya, there was much more Vaishnavism. So Sankaracharya covered Vaishnavism, and then it's being reclaimed. It's being reclaimed by Ramanuja, Madhvacharya, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So now it's our business to reclaim Gujarat. Gujarat for Krishna. Huh?
You're in the right place.
Yeah. Jai Shri Krishna, Gujarat for Krishna. That's our business. We're reclaiming. Yeah. That's why I'm here this morning. You already had your question.
But if you give them away, then aren't you encouraging someone else to worship them?
That's okay, because they are worshipping them. As Vyasadeva also did. People are not ready just to take Krishna. So those who are very steeped in demigod worship, they can worship. Yes. Okay, still, she wants the last word. I'm teasing. Yes.
You mentioned earlier that
Loud.
the truth is only known to those that are not.
The trick?
Truth.
The truth. Okay, yeah, deaf Swami. That's all right, just deaf, loud.
And you were talking about Maya bodies, but I also heard that how obviously we have envy within us because we think we're the controllers.
How can you say such a thing that we have envy in us? Maybe you have, but I'm saying that I have envy in me. Thank you very much. I've been called many things, but I had to come to Leicester to be called an envy